Do you own a practice? Are you really managing it effectively? What does the finances look like? On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the 7 most common things that can impact the practice financially. We're going to look at it through a business owner lens. And on today's podcast, we have the one and only Adam Cmejla. Let's talk money, baby. Let's go.
This is a Defocus Media production. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. We are back, and we're talking about finances again because it's something that we all need to know about. We all need to learn about to elevate our practices and take our lifestyles to the next level, but make sure that we also have practices here around for our patients to serve as well. And on today's podcast, we have our expert, our partner in crime back again, Adam. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Dr. Glover. Thank you for having me back. I didn't scare you off in the first episode, so I appreciate you having me back for this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, hey, man, we had to bring you back because everyone was calling, bring Adam back, bring Adam back.
Everybody binged all of 2020. They binged all of yours and they're like, I want more. Bring it back.
You got that uptick in those downloads, man. Congratulations, baby. But we are back, man. And today I want to have a different conversation, right? I really want to have a conversation from an owner's perspective, right? Because as owners of practices, you guys don't know everything, right? So right. I think it's very important to really have a conversation about finances. And I really want to break down the top 7 common financial mistakes that optometrists make, especially from a business owner perspective. So I'd love to get started and really just take it from the top, my friend. So let's jump right into it. Number 1.
Let's do it. So a caveat or a preamble before we get into this, and we'll do this somewhat rapid fire, just doing the math on the time that we have for the conversation. Brevity is a quality of mine that I'm working on. So this is going to be a good exercise for me to challenge that quality.
Well, you know, on the previous podcast, I said our wives are alike, but I feel like you and I are alike because I have to practice the same thing in the exam lane with my patients.
Right.
Because, man, I could go on for days. But that's why I love optometry, because I get to sit down and have a conversation with someone, learn more about them. And I swear, man, every time a patient comes into my room, to my exam lane, they are now a part of my family and I'm a part of their family. So to your point, I get it. I'm living a day in and day out. Fire away.
All good. My wife will say, why do you take 11 words when 4 will work? I don't know. It's just who I am. You still love me, right? All right. So the preamble that I want to give is, while a lot of what I'm going to talk about here today is, yes, through the lens of a practice owner, if you are an associate listening or a non-owner, do not go away. Do not think that this episode is not for you, because what I will be talking about and what I want to encourage you to think of as a non-owner is that these things still apply to you, and you can still use them as a non-owner. I would say they're just the implications of not executing on them are amplified for an actual owner, for an existing practice owner. So I don't want listeners like, oh, this is a practice owner. This isn't for me. Yes, it is. Maybe not in the direct way, but I'll try.
This is for everyone. This is inclusive, man. That's what we practice to preach on Defocus Media, man. Let's go.
Yep. So the first one, this is kind of a tie into our last conversation. I'm sure you'll link to our previous conversation in the show notes of this episode. Captain Obvious statement, it's not saving early and not starting early. In the first episode, we talked about how important it is to start building money habits early on, even if you have the ability to do it in school. The reason that it's so important is that, and the reason that saving and building those savings habits as soon as possible are so important is because as an owner, the ability for you to really start saving is delayed by a lot of years because of what it takes you to get to the point where you actually now have the cash flow to be able to save, right? If we do the math on that, you spend you're 4 years in undergrad, so now you're 22. You spend another 4 years in optometry school, so now we're 26. You work as an associate for a couple of years. Maybe you started saving a little bit. Then you decide to either launch your own practice as a cold start, or you buy another practice, either partly or entirely. You can blink and be 30 plus and really not have the opportunity to build some of those consistent, impactful savings habits.
Yeah.
So the earlier that you can start that, the better off that's going to be. And more importantly, when you get to that point of actually having the cash flow, the amplification of getting it right is so important, because time, with every passing year that you don't implement good savings habits, time becomes less your asset, or less your asset and more your enemy. The one thing that you need for, well, two things. One of them is finite. One of them is infinite. The one thing that is a finite resource that you need to make compounding interest work is time. And so with every year that goes by that you don't do that, it becomes more important that you save more later on in life, which, interestingly enough, life never gets less expensive or less complicated. So start saving early. And again, amplified on the practice owner side of things, because you're writing a check to buy a practice, either literally or figuratively, using OPM, using a bank at some point in your life, thus putting you a little bit further behind the savings curve. So it's so important to get it right when you have that opportunity.
Awesome. I'm gonna pause right quick. We got some people coming in to see my mom. Please. I was like, okay, here goes the doorbell. I apologize about that. All right, so we're back into it. I'll make sure my team edits that.
Yep.
All right, so make sure we're recording. Perfect. So I agree, man. Time is where it's at, right? You know, and there are some ODs out there, whether business owners, associates, that are like me, where I got out of optometry school a little later in life. I didn't start until I was in my 30s, right? No, my late 20s, and I graduated in my early 30s. So, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, man, I wish I had a little more time to start saving after I made all this money. So time is of the essence. Time is very important. Make sure that you leverage that time, you guys.
Yep. So number two is, I don't care. There's so much talk about in the profession when we measure the size of the practice, and I get why, and this is not to digress into why this happens, but so many people will talk about the size of the top line revenue in the practice. And while that is important, I don't care necessarily. I care much more not what you make, but what you keep.
Right.
And so understanding the profitability in your practice and what the true profitability is. And one of the ways in which you can do that, we see this mistake being made all the time with practice owners that have masked their profitability. And the number one way that they mask their true profitability is as an owner working in their own practice as a clinician, right? You're wearing two hats as an owner, one for the work that you do in the practice as a clinician, and the other that you wear as the owner, which is the return on investment that you get for owning a practice and thus taking the risk of owning a business. And the number one way that we see owners mask their true profitability of their practice is not paying themselves a fair wage. Now, there's a whole nother discussion on how you should pay yourself in the practice, and there are very real reasons as to why one might overpay themselves in their practice. There's also reasons why someone might underpay themselves. But at the very least, do the financial calculation to ask yourself the question, given the clinical schedule that I have, the number of hours that I am in clinic per week, what would I have to pay to bring in an outside OD to do that level of work? And what would be the plus of that? The plus is your malpractice insurance, vacation, CE, 401k, any other above the line benefits that you would pay. What would be the total cost to the practice to replace you as the OD in the business? Now, once you have that number, go back to your profit loss, run the analysis to see how much at the bottom of that profit loss statement is your net OI, your NOI, your net operating income. And we've seen practices when at first glance, when we look at their P&L, and they'll show a really nice profitable number. And then we look at how much they're paying themselves, and they're paying themselves $20,000 a year for full, and they're working 5 days a week in the clinic. And so now, and look, as an owner, yes, you are taking home that money, whether it comes as a W-2 or you're taking it as shareholder distributions. I understand that you're getting that money, but it's not answering the question of how profitable is this business? How much of a return on investment is this business? And unfortunately, I have had more conversations that I care to admit where an owner essentially owns a job. And the stress of practice ownership, they have, and they're carrying all the stress of practice ownership without the return. And we've had very direct conversations that have said, we might need to start seriously think about exiting ownership because you're making less than what you would make as an associate. And spoiler alert, they're usually not that happy as owners anyway. And they can make more, quote unquote, just as an associate. Now, those are outlier examples. My point in that is, to quote one of my favorite management and executive consultants out there, Peter Drucker, who, you know, father of modern day management. He wrote the book, the seminal book called The Practice of Management. One of his pivotal phrases was, "What gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed improves." And if you're not managing your true profitability, it's very difficult to understand how much is this business actually worth.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, just thinking about exit strategies, how can you truly have an exit strategy?
See, that's number 4. You're getting ahead of yourself. You're ahead of me. Come on, Darren. No, I'm just...
But it's real, man. It's real, right? I mean,
and with the end in mind, right?
Yeah, you got to know. And this goes back to the previous podcast that we had, and it's all about planning, man. Right? You really got to be able to plan and being intentional and purposeful when it comes to finances, right?
Yep.
Love it. Number 3, what do you have?
Right, well, so I'm going to flip 4 and 3 just so that we can keep that because you teed it up. So number 4, which is now number 3, was not having a succession plan in place.
Okay.
Every practice owner listening right now, myself included as a business owner, needs to understand that you will leave your business at some point.
Yes.
The question is, will it be on your terms or somebody else's? Now, if you're a 40-year-old practice owner right now, I'm not saying that you need to have your next successor identified. I'm not saying that you need to have that. This is not an excuse to go bring on a partner. Please listen. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting and what I am encouraging is what you had mentioned, kind of how you answer, or you followed up to my previous tip, was beginning with the end in mind and knowing what it is that you own and what it's actually worth. So that when you do get to that point of selling, and look, I've been doing this now coming up on 18 years, and we've had practice owners in their 40s that have decided, you know what? Been there, done that. I'm kind of done with optometry. I'd like to do something else. And they sell in their 40s. They'll sell in their 50s. Of course, the vast majority of practice owners listening are using optometry and are in the profession to bridge that gap between, as we joked about in the last conversation, between having kids and retiring. Like, optometry is that profession. So the vast majority of practice owners listening will spend decades, plural, right, in ownership. But my point in that is, if you don't know what your business produces, the value of any business is simply the predictability of future cash flow. The more confident I, as a potential buyer or investor, are in the predictability of that future cash flow, the more I am willing to pay for that, right? It's all about risk-return trade-off, risk-return reward. Yeah. The less predictable that cash flow is, or if it's even existent at all, the less I'm willing to pay for that investment because A, the cash flow isn't very predictable, and B, what cash flow that is there isn't what it should be based off of the volume of the practice. So you have to know the profitability of your practice as my tip number 2, so that when you get to that point of having a succession plan, you know what this business is worth. I'm not saying that you need to value your business every year, but it is prudent to have somebody give you an understanding of what your practice is worth roughly every 2 to 3 years for 2 reasons. Number 1, life happens. We have a relationship right now that is going through the process of selling their business because they have developed a permanent disability in their hand. And they literally, the operation of a slit lamp just does not happen anymore. Yeah. And so because of that, they don't really want to, quote unquote, own without working in the practice. So we're in the process of filing disability claims and getting them on claim because they can't practice their profession anymore. And because of that, like, I don't want to own this anymore. If I can't practice in it, I don't want to own it. Right. And so they're in the process of selling the practice as well. Life does happen, not all the time. But my point with that is it doesn't take a lot of effort to understand what your business is worth so that you always will have that information and be able to, again, what gets measured gets managed and what gets managed improves. So that was 4, now 3. So we'll move on to 4. But any thoughts?
No, I think you nailed it, man. And I really love that you were transparent about, life's,
Yeah.
right? And at any given time, we don't know what may happen, right? Whether it's an injury, whether it's, separation, personally or professionally with the separation. So it's very important to just make sure you stay on top of those things and have a good succession plan as well. And just make sure you're constantly improving your practice and managing it and knowing its worth. So I think that's great. I mean, I almost feel like that should be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because it's real. I think sometimes we take things for granted, and as optometrists, as eye care professionals, we do well, and at some point it can be taken away. And it's very important for us to make sure that we have the right tools and resources to be able to pivot if we need to.
Yep. So number 4 somewhat plays in, or again, this is great conversation because it's feeding right into the next. Number 4 is not having proper risk protection in place. That's a fancy it's a fancy way for saying insurance. And this, look, I'm not an insurance agent. Don't ask me to buy insurance. I can't offer it. My point is, just again, full disclosure, it is nobody likes it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not even talk about VBMs or VCPs or no, in any context, nobody likes talking about insurance. Right. But it is important. It is an important component of your plan. And again, this is important whether you're an owner or an associate. Your greatest wealth building tool is not the selection of the right ETF or the right mutual fund or the right stock. It's not your greatest wealth building tool is your income. And if you look at an average practice owner right now, between the money that they earn working in their practice clinically, as well as the return on investment over a normal ownership experience, is going to provide $4 million of cash flow to their personal life.
Wow.
Why would you not protect that?
Yeah.
And so often we will find ODs, and I get it. Look, insurance is not sexy. It's not what we like to talk about. We pay for it, and we don't really ever get to use it per se. We don't get to see it. All we get for it is a statement of insurance or a declaration page or showing that we own. I get it. It's not sexy. We'd much rather talk about our Roth IRAs or the investments and things like that. I understand that. But it is so prudent and important to protect the greatest wealth building tool, which is your income. And it's amplified from a practice owner's perspective, again, because you have 2 different ways in which you're making money through the business, as a clinician, as well as a shareholder, as an owner of this business. And this is something that I think ODs, it's something that I recognize every now and then as well as an owner. My ownership in a company and the team that I have as an owner, it's not lost on me that I've built a business that is providing an income to my team, which allows them to take care of their families.
Families as well. Yeah, that's heavy right there. I mean, a lot of people rely on you as a business owner.
Exactly.
You are feeding families. You are taking care of homes. You are, creating wealth for other families as well, not just yours internally, right? So I think that's a great call out, man. What we do as business owners impacts everything that moves around us. And just even think about the community level, right? As optometrists, we know there's an issue with access to care. So it's very important to consider all of those things.
Exactly. And so the two pieces, I mean, look, there's a lot of different pieces of insurance to take into consideration, some of which you need, some of which you don't, and that changes as well. But at a minimum, make sure that you have good level term, look, for 99% of ODs listening right now, level term insurance, life insurance is going to be more than sufficient for what you need, and having an own occupation disability policy that protects your occupation as an optometrist. Remember that in my previous example, the OD that has a full disability in their hand and can't operate a slit lamp anymore, so they're not able to practice. They're not able to use that hand. I know of another OD in the Atlanta area that fell off a ladder cleaning out his gutters, shattered his heel. He showed a picture. I met him at a conference one time, and he showed me a picture of his heel. And I think his surgeon said, trying to put together a heel with pins and needles is like trying to screw together sawdust. It was just really, so he showed me this picture, and there's all these pins and everything going into his heel. he can't be on his feet all day. So he's permanently partially disabled. My point is, again, life happens. Don't discount the importance of protecting your greatest wealth building tool. Have a conversation with an insurance broker. There's a difference between an agent and a broker. Find a broker, which means that it's an independent agent that can shop your unique case and find the right kind of coverage for you, as opposed to an agent represents one company and all they can offer is that one company. So find an insurance broker that can protect your profession as an optometrist. Don't discount the importance of that income. And to your point earlier, just the ripple effect of what your ownership does for not only the patients that you care for, but the team in which you employ.
Yeah. And then it's always better to do this earlier in life, because as you get older, the cost starts to shoot up as well. Right?
Absolutely.
So the more you can lock in to secure that safety is always going to be better. But just from a financial standpoint, it's going to be better as well.
Yep. And look, to close the loop on that entire concept, the goal with insurance is to eventually, through the saving and investing that we talked about in number one, is to get to the point of being self-insured, where you don't need this coverage anymore because you've built a balance sheet between the enterprise value of the practice and your other investments, that you've used the cash flow from the business and you've used the practice as a conduit for that cash flow. Like, between all of these different pieces of your financial puzzle, you're self-insured. So the goal is not to have insurance forever. It's have it when it's applicable, when you need it. And again, another reason why you're not building a financial plan. You're engaging in financial planning. It's a verb. It is a process. It's always changing. Your life is always changing. This is one example of one of many examples where things change. Adapt accordingly.
I love that. All
right. Number 5, we're going to keep going. This is like rapid fire here. So number 5, from an ownership perspective, not understanding your balance sheet in the practice. It is when we look at financial statements from owners, it is, we kind of have a joke internally, like, all right, how wrong is this one? And I get it, balance sheets, and usually the culprit ends up happening. The reason that the balance sheet is wrong is because the practice owner at some point in the past was doing their books themselves. And they don't understand shareholder basis. They don't understand capital distributions. They're not sure how to, you're not bookkeepers, shocker, right? I mean, so there's a lot of nuances that go into proper financial record management in bookkeeping, and where a lot of those, like, you can get away with that per se on the statement of cash flow and on the P&L, or at least those missteps don't necessarily show up as much there.
Right.
They manifest themselves in a balance sheet. And so the reason that understanding your balance sheet is important is, again, going back to bullet point number 3, which is from a succession plan standpoint. We just recently had one of our relationships that got a $4.2 million offer for their 3-location practice, which you're like, holy buckets, $4.2 million. Like, this is what a deal, right? That's an awesome buyout for their practice. Until I tell you that he has $1.8 million of debt on the business. And so when you sell an optometry practice, vast majority of transactions that happen are what's called an asset sale, which means that you as the owner sell the assets of the business to a willing buyer that's going to write you a check in exchange for the assets. Notice I didn't say it's an assets and liabilities sale.
Right.
It is an asset sale. And so our client, the owner of this practice, is going to get a check for $4.2 million and turn right around before the ink dries on that check and pay off $1.8 million of liability. And pay taxes on the full $4.2 million. So when we run the tax projections and show him the net, right, after broker fees, after taxes, after debt service, it's not $4.2 million. Right. And so I'm not saying, so please hear me when I say this. I'm not telling you to not use debt. Please don't think of me as like the Dave Ramsey of optometry. I am not telling you to not use debt. I'm telling you 2 things in the context of this example. Number 1, be prudent when you take out debt, and do everything that you can to not leverage up your practice in debt when you get ready to sell. Because again, you're going to pay for that either implicitly or explicitly in the context of ownership and when you sell. So be prudent with debt. And I can't define that for you. Every practice is different. Right. But just when I say that, if I put myself in a listener situation, I can already hear them. Well, okay, what's prudent, Adam? I can't tell you what's prudent, but what I can tell you is here's a good litmus test. If the reason that you have a lot of debt on your balance sheet is because every time so we're recording this at the end of August in 2025, and inevitably in about 2 months or so, you're probably going to hopefully get a call from your CPA or your advisors talking to you about what your projected 2025 tax liability. If their recommendation before they take a breath is to ask you, so what kind of equipment can you buy to expense this and write off this to reduce your tax bill, that is a perfect example to hit pause. Don't let the tax tail wag the debt dog. I've never used that phrase before, but I think it works.
I like that. Put it on a shirt. Put it on a shirt.
There is exercising that strategy. Yes. Does it work? Absolutely. Is buying equipment and taking on debt, if for no other reason, just to avoid paying taxes, is that prudent? No. Because guess what? When you sell the practice, not only are you going to have to pay off that debt, but if you use bonus depreciation or you 179 expense that equipment, and I'm going to get a little technical here, but I'll bring us back up for air.
You're gonna have to pay on it.
Exactly. There is something called recapture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the two certainties in life, Dr. Glover? Death.
Taxes and death.
Exactly. The only way to avoid the former is to have the latter. Right. The only way that you personally avoid paying taxes is to die.
Yeah.
That sounds really dark and heavy. I don't want anybody on this podcast to die.
Real talk, that's what we have, real authentic conversations. So.
Exactly. And so the idea of leveraging up your practice and buying a bunch of equipment that could you make the argument that you quote unquote need it? Maybe. But if the primary reason for taking on that debt and buying that equipment was to avoid paying taxes, you're eventually going to pay that back at some point in the form of depreciation recapture. So that is a perfect example of ways to think about being prudent with the cash flow that the practice generates.
Yeah. And I think this just goes all the way back to the top of our previous conversation about planning.
Yes.
I mean, everything revolves around planning, right? If you know your exit strategy is to sell your practice, you need to plan appropriately, start from the back, work your way forward, and not just take on debt for no reason, just to avoid taxes. Like, you really got to be hyper-focused and make sure that you know what you're doing, or get with a professional that can really help you. I'm a firm believer that I don't have all the answers. My wife would definitely say that as well.
She does, though. She has all the answers.
Right. I surround myself with people that can help make me make educated, informative, and effective decisions, right? Whether it's in patient care, whether it's in leadership, whether it's financially. You always want to surround yourself with a good circle of people that can help you elevate, hold you accountable, and take it to the next level, regardless of what you're doing. So
absolutely.
Planning is huge.
Yep. All right. Number 6, focusing too much on cost and not as much on revenue. Now, I'm not, again, I'm saying these and then I'm giving in the same breath a caveat. Yeah. I'm not saying to be just a free spirit with cost in your practice and just spend a bunch of money on a bunch of things. Please know, when I talk about the business of optometry, and I use the metaphor of a game of Plinko. When you drop $1 of revenue into a practice, every item or every notch that it hits on the way down is an expense in your practice.
Yeah.
You can hit 2 of those and eat up 50 cents of every dollar in the form of cost of goods and non-OD staff expense, right? Or excuse me, staff expense between associate OD comp, if you have one, your comp as an owner, and non-OD staff, right? Cost of goods and staff can eat up 50 cents of every dollar of revenue, sometimes more, depending on cost of living area, where the practice is located, the type of optical services that you provide, et cetera. So please, I get it. I understand that you have to be mindful of cost. But I think it's also important to be mindful of, as I mentioned in number 1, be mindful of the finite and infinite resources that we have. With more time, you can make more money. But with more money, you cannot make more time.
Right.
And so there is a point. And again, I don't know. I'll say I don't know what that line is, and then maybe in my talking, I'll end up coming up with an example like I did in the previous example. I don't know what that point is, but I have seen ODs spend an incredible amount of time trying to save what equates to less than 1% of revenue on their profit loss statement. rather than focusing on how can I increase my top line revenue?
Yeah.
How can I expand the scope of care that I provide to my patients? How can I readjust my schedule so that I can see more patients? How do I fill my schedule if my schedule isn't full? I know every OD listening right now that has a full schedule will likely say that is the number one catalyst to having a successful practice. And I also know that ODs listening right now that may be in the earlier years of their ownership experience that don't have a full schedule, you're likely saying all of my problems would be smaller if only I had a full schedule. So I realize that part of what I'm saying here is a little bit Captain Obvious, but my point with that is what you focus on expands in all aspects of life. And so if you're focusing more so on cutting costs and you're being very one-dimensional in your ownership experience and quote unquote just focusing on how to reduce costs without also thinking about and maybe leaning a little bit more into how do I increase revenue? Inflation creep is very real for practice owners listening right now. I know you have seen it in all areas of your practice. And not to pick at a scab that I know we all know, VBMs, vision and benefit managers, have not increased reimbursements in decades. So I know that you are fighting an uphill battle here and moving against, kind of facing some headwinds here. It's all the more reason to focus on ways in which you can increase practice revenue while also focusing on the cost. Don't be one-dimensional in that.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of things that you discuss, Adam, is actually things that you could take professionally, but also implement personally, right?
Absolutely.
It's all walks of life. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What do we got next, my friend?
All right, tying a bow around the seven ideas here, and I've seen this one happen as well. There is I think in today's world, maybe more so than in times past, the desire and maybe almost feeling like not the obligation, but the desire and the itch to get creative with our investments. And like, ooh, my friend is investing in commercial real estate. Maybe I should. Oh, my other friend, I heard this colleague, this OD is doing short-term rentals. Maybe I should build an Airbnb portfolio. This person bought a ski condo. Maybe I should. And a tangential like cousin to that is every now and then I'll see posts online where people will say, what are you doing for side hustles? Or here's my favorite, my absolute biggest pet peeve. What are you doing for passive income, right? What other passive income ideas do you have out there? The irony of that for everybody listening, do you know what the most basic, the absolute best let me try that again. Do you know the irony that the most passive income investment that you can have, do you know what that is?
What's that?
A brokerage account. You don't have to do anything. You put the money in, you let compounding interest work, and decades later, believing in the power of capital markets and assuming that capital markets still continue to perform the way they have for 100 plus years, voila.
Yeah.
But we get focused on this, I gotta have it now. I gotta turn $1 into $2, and I gotta get the tax deduction with it.
That noise, we talked about on the previous podcast, all that noise, social media, the lights, the glamour. People think it's really something that's going to change their lives, but in reality, it more than likely is not. Why not just stick to what's not truly sexy, but in the long run will really benefit from, and just make life a lot easier, man. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the hype when we can just look at what's really right in front of us, and it's the most basic thing. And if we run with that, our lives will be so much easier. So for everyone out there listening, don't get caught up in all the hype and all the sexy things. Make sure that you really look at what you can do to elevate your life. And a simple brokerage account can really make life a lot easier. I opened up brokerage accounts for both of my kids, man. My son is 8, my daughter is now 4. And the amount that they have invested in those portfolios is just ridiculous. And I'm just, man, they're going to be good, And it's just amazing to see the money grow over time, man. And I just feel like as eye care professionals, we got to just stick to the basics, man. And that'll just elevate everything we do, especially when you get to that time of retirement, whatever the age or timeline that is for you.
Exactly. And I'm not saying to not do those things that I'm talking about. I'm not saying it'll be hard pressed to find another, let me say it this way. we advocate for real estate to be a part of an investor's portfolio.
Yeah.
There's many different ways in which you can incorporate real estate into your portfolio. So please know that I'm not absolute in saying it's only a brokerage account, only with ETFs, only with these open-ended funds, and none of these other investments. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, and this goes back to the previous conversation on the other episode that we have, is first ask yourself why. Why are you thinking about doing this? Why is this investment important to you? Why do you want to incorporate this into your investment portfolio? Does it match up with your investment philosophy? If you answer those questions and you can be truly convicted in the why, great.
Yeah.
Like full send and do the due diligence and make the investment, but be prudent in that investment process, because if what you're trying to solve for is, or if you go through that and the reason that you come up with is none other than, well, I saw it on Facebook, or I saw it on Instagram, or I saw it on TikTok, and there's an awesome tax deduction that somebody said I could say, because all the tax advice on TikTok is real. Sorry, I'm just maybe a little bit salty, but if those are the reasons, that might be a reason in and of itself to hit pause.
Yeah.
And really do some, kind of peel the layers back, peel your own onion back a little bit more and figure out, okay, why am I truly doing this?
Yeah.
And then if you are going to be committed, again, do as much due diligence as you can beyond social media, beyond YouTube feeds, beyond YouTube shorts, etc. And execute accordingly.
I love that, man. And while you were talking, I just came up with a segment for you on your own show, if you don't already have this. And everything you're saying, all I'm thinking in my head is make it make sense.
Yeah. Make it make sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. Make it make sense. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
You think about optometry, the most precious sense that everyone loves is, sight. And then you think about cents, coins, dollars, right? Make it make sense. You got to have a segment on that, man, moving forward, man. You see how I put that together?
So you'll laugh at this. As a podcast host, you'll understand that there's like the RSS feed of every podcast has the original name of the show in it. So if you go back and look at 2020 Money, the business of optometry, which is what our show is currently being rebranded as, the Libsyn feed, the original feed for our show, is a dose of financial sense.
Okay.
That's what I originally wanted to name the show. I'm so glad I didn't actually execute on it because, it was a play on sense, a dose of financial sense. Make it make sense. So I'm with you. I'd like going back to 2018. Adam 2018 resonates very much with that. So I like it.
I love this, man. Adam, man, this has been fantastic, man. We got these 7 areas that we have to look at. You've dropped a wealth of knowledge on both of these podcasts. If we truly had to wrap it up in the bow and put it out there for, all our eye care professional buddies, all of our healthcare buddies, because this can really be used anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. What would be the one take home? The what is it? Is it the RBA?
The NBS, the next best step.
NBS, next best step. Yeah. What would that be, my friend?
I would make sure that you have your own sounding board, your own professional team, that you can run a lot of these things that I'm talking about through a filter that knows your situation. And that doesn't have to be an advisor. That can be a mastermind group. That can be a colleague of yours, a mentor of yours, a faculty member from your optometry school that you developed a good relationship with, your aunt, your uncle, your parents, a sibling, best friend. Have somebody that can take these ideas, which at face value might be great ideas, but they're missing context. And that context for you, my friends listening, is your situation, your life, your intention, your purpose. And as long as you have somebody that you can use as a sounding board, as the denominator, as you look at all of these numerators that I talked about, that would be what I would focus on. Find your NBS, find your sounding board. Maybe you already have your professional team of advisors.
Yeah.
And if you're in that situation, kudos to you, and take that as conviction and confidence that you're doing things right and that you're able to filter through all this. If you don't, that would be my NBS.
I love it, man. Get your sounding board. And to close out the show, I'd love for you to maybe share your top 3 books that you think will really impact optometrists or healthcare professionals, especially when it comes to the finances. And then I would love for you to really share your contact information for anyone that wants to listen to your podcast or take you on as a client, or be a client of yours, because you are dropping some gems here, my friend.
So in no particular order, from a financial standpoint, I would have you read Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits by Greg Crabtree. Shout out to Nathan Hayes, a friend of my show of 2020 Money. He's been on a number of times and is the current director of books and benchmarks, part of iDoc. So Nathan introduced that book to me years ago, and it is a very easy read for a non-business person that owns a business to start getting into the weeds of how numbers and business work.
Yeah.
Operationally, I love Traction by Gino Wickman, founder of EOS. Spoiler alert, not all practices will be at a stage where they can truly implement EOS and need an EOS implementer, but there are concepts and tools in that book that can really help you think differently about your business and truly get into the ownership side of things. And then from a not psychological, but what's the word I'm thinking of? Emotional point of view and a mindset. Thinking a timeless classic, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Nice.
Changes your life and how you think about, how you think and grow rich. Now, spoiler alert, you can't just think and have money manifest and fall out of the sky like manna from heaven, right? But it is a mindset shift in how to think about the unlimited amount of value that you can deliver into the marketplace. And when you deliver an unlimited, and when you have that mindset of how can I deliver an unlimited amount of value to my patients, to my community, to my team, the income itself can also become unlimited.
I love it. And if they want to tap in with you and leverage your services and listen to your podcast, how do they get in touch, my friend?
Yeah, best place to find out all the resources that we are putting out at our firm is to head to integratedpwm.com. So Integrated Planning Wealth Management, integratedpwm.com, to search for 2020 Money. Just as you would refract your money down to 2020 Clarity, just search 20/20 Money on any of the podcast players out there, Apple, Spotify, tune in. We're on all the major platforms there. So appreciate the opportunity to share and be on the show here, Dr. Glover.
Hey, man, I love this. And Adam, you're always welcome back to the show. Your brain just blows my brain. You are truly a wealth of knowledge, man. And just continue the great work. And I think, as eye care professionals, I want to say on behalf of our industry, thank you, because you have really dedicated your career to really reaching out to optometrists and making sure that they're successful, whether they're in optometry school, a new graduate, a seasoned OD, a business owner, associate doctor. You have the right tools and resources to make our lives a lot easier. Now it's up to us as eye care professionals to make sure that we go and take advantage of those resources that you have. So for all my colleagues out there, make sure you listen to this podcast, the last podcast, check out Adam's podcast, and make a change and a difference, not in your lives, but your office lives, your community lives, and this just make this place a better place, right? Thank you again, my friend. Stay healthy, stay positive, stay blessed, and until next time,
hey,
peace.
family, if you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.